I stand before you today fully awake, but I dreamed the dream of Jesus, of Muhammad, of Gandhi, of Martin Luther King, and every spiritual and religious leader have come before us.
Delighted
I
today to
have a
welcome
dream.
back Jane Ansell, who was the founder of a very important organization in our nation's history, Sleep Scotland. I'm always curious about what motivates someone to start an important, valuable organization such as Sleep Scotland. So, Jane, because this program deals in interfaith, how did your faith, your spirituality, guide you to establish this organization?
Thanks, Joe, and hello to everybody. I'm delighted to take part in this interfaith program. And Joe, I can tell you, it was very clear in my mind that I had two teachers, so to speak, and they were intermingled with each other. So one was my Judaism, the Torah, the Living Torah, and my second, and it wasn't particularly in any order, was my son, Andrew, who sadly passed away this November gone, but who was most definitely my inspiration and my teacher. Should I go on a little more?
Please.
And tell you? Okay, so I, first of all, I'm very clear that we're told in our Torah that if there is a gap, if there is something that needs tending to in some way or form or building, then it's our duty to actually go in, take the first step and do that. We might not be able to finish it, and that isn't what counts. But usually we can gather other people along the way as well. And I think that's also an important way to work. And that's exactly how it was on Sleep. Over 23 years ago, when I founded the organization, there was certainly nothing for children with special needs. There was a little bit about sleep, not a lot. It's changed a lot in 23 years, which I hope is part of what we've tried to do to put it on the agenda. And I, the second thing, I guess, was I was fortunate enough to have a psychology background, and I was also fortunate enough to have a son that inspired me. Now, this might sound very strange because I was actually a very sleep-deprived mum of two boys at that stage. And the story I often tell people was how his teacher, when I was at a parents' evening, noticed how tired I was because I was nodding off. And I told her why I was tired, because Andrew would get up at 4 a.m. and his morning, beginning his day, and that meant it was my day too. And she then revealed to me that in all her 20 years of teaching or more, she had always had children with special needs with sleep problems, which just made me think there is a job to be done here and maybe I could do it. So I realized that both through my personal and my professional experience, and when you ask me, how spiritually or how through my Judaism or my spiritual beliefs did I do this, it's so hard to separate those spiritual beliefs. I'm a believer in the living Torah, that everything we do is connected, or everything I do in some way is connected. And I'm lucky enough to have the guidance as well, because there's many things about sleep in the Torah. So in a way, I had guidance. I found a gap. I knew I had to have something to do. I had to do something about it. I had all that knowledge from my son, and I knew that there were this whole, I call them the army of hidden women. They might be men, but they are generally women. And they are working so hard with their children with these extra and special needs, and they're sleep deprived. And I realized they needn't be because of my psychology background. So Andrew was my first student. I'm very successful. And to his last day, he really had a sleep routine. The time might change when he went to bed, but the sleep routine was the same. So I knew that my job then was to find some way of reaching other people. And I did it in steps. I had no idea that it was going to be, thousands and thousands of people. I was just happy to reach whoever I could reach.
Well, it's wonderful that you describe your two teachers as being the living Torah and Andrew, because I've always thought of people as the living Torah, that the Torah lives through human beings and through their actions. In Judaism, we have a phrase, tikkun olam, to repair the world. When you talk about the gaps in society that were closed by, for example, the creation of Sleep Scotland, is that also part of charity, of repairing the world, tikkun olam? What are your thoughts?
Yes, and in fact, Tikkun Olam is about repairing the world, but it actually means justice, because that's what we need in the world. We need more equality and more justice. And by working on things where which don't exist or which need to be done better, um, then we can help sort of build a better world. And everybody can do it in whatever way they're doing. Because, at the moment, life is really, really strange. And I'm not doing a lot of the things that I might have done in the past. And some of what I'm doing is just listening to people and taking cakes up to the hospital, And you know what? It's great. It doesn't matter what you do, if it's something that's needed to be done and somebody wants it, and you can help them with the knowledge that you have. And I think it's really important. The Tikkun Olam is probably important. I obviously know more about Judaism than I do other religions, but I suspect that we're all of us are made in God's image. So every person, whether we know them or whether we don't know them, it's really important that what happens to them.
Jane, speaking of interfaith and other people's religions, one of the things that I've noticed is that every human being who aspires to have faith or spirituality, from time to time in their life, will face some challenge, whether it be financial or social or personal in some way, and that often they turn to their faith and spirituality to help them through this rough patch. Have there been any times in your life, whether it be with the establishment and development of Sleep Scotland or in caring for your three sons, in which there were rough patches that you turned back to your faith and spirituality to help you move forward?
Absolutely. I don't think you can, for example, found and be CEO of an organization for that long when it grows from, a handful of people to hundreds of people, and not have challenges. And Joe, I can tell you, one of my main books that I would turn to is Rabbi Sachs on leadership. It was, out of all the leadership courses I went to, that was by far the best. And that was really, really helpful in the challenges. If I can, I guess my lesson in all that is remember why you're actually there. I was there for the families, the students, I was there for the people. And if you keep that in mind, I think that helps a lot. On a more personal note, I guess Andrew and I had many, many challenges. Andrew had many complex needs, but he lived a very full life, and he never let a challenge overcome him. And that was a very powerful lesson that he taught me. And of course, the biggest challenge was when he was in hospital, very, very ill. And we didn't know whether or not he would pull through. And I remember the doctors and the nursing staff were wonderful. But every so often the doctor would pull me in and talk to me. And I said to him, look, I can tell, I know you think I've got my head in the sand because you're telling me how grave the situation is. And I'm saying, well, you know, we don't just, all I'm asking you to do is all you can. But that's because I know that the final choice will not be made, however wonderful the medicine is, it will be made by Andrew and it will be made, in my eyes, by God. And that is my belief. And I believe that he did so much in his life, in his all but 31 years, that like some very, very prominent rabbis, he was called back again. I was lucky enough to have him almost on loan for his years. And I was lucky enough to be one of the people chosen to help him to do the jobs that I did. And that I think Andrew not being with me has to be the biggest challenge I hope I'll ever face. But I know through learning what I've learned and through learning more, this year I've tried to learn an awful lot more about somebody's life. And I'll just give you a little story which helped me a lot. I read a book called Transitions in Life. And it was actually a book written by a very learned scholar and rabbi. And he had this story about these twins that were in, you know, they weren't born, they were in their mother's stomach, and they were arguing with each other all the time about what happens after they weren't in the mother's stomach, you know, in the womb. And one of the twins said, no, we'll always be here. This is wonderful. We don't need to be anywhere else. And the other said, no, there must be another world. Anyway, one day, the twin that was totally satisfied with his situation, never thought he'd be anywhere else, heard all these screams, and he said, my brother's dying. What am I going to do? That's it. I'm losing my brother. And then he heard this laughter and these congratulations and this jubilation. And of course, he was born, his brother was born, and he was soon to follow. But that he had no idea about another life, our life, in the way that sometimes we have no idea about what happens when we shed the life on this earth. And I held on to that very strongly. And I do to this day. That the more that I learn, the more it helps me understand, and the more that I know that I still have work to do, and Andrew's still guiding some of those projects.
Oh, Jane, that's so inspiring. You know, you mentioned Rabbi Sachs' book on leadership, which I also recommend to our viewers. That's Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. But I believe, Jane Ansell, there's a book inside you, which I hope you'll write one day. So let's write the first chapter for your granddaughter right now as we bring this interview to a close in a few minutes. What would you like your granddaughter to remember from her grandmother about the importance of faith and spirituality in terms of making this a better world?
Oh, that's a big question, because everybody will have to learn for themselves in the end. But I just hope that, and I know she's surrounded by love, we'll always tell her about her Uncle Andrew, always. And she's got plenty of diversity in the family to learn from. And she'll always know that she's really important, but so is everyone else. And I just hope, and I know, that she will learn her own lessons from what she sees really close to her and further away, and from her wonderful parents as well as me.
As I listen to you speak, I see a theme throughout your entire life, the 23 years of establishing Sleep Scotland, your care for your beloved 3 sons and now granddaughter. And that theme is simply love and learning. And the two, as you say, are completely intertwined, that throughout a life of faith or spirituality, one must have not only a love for people, but a love for discovery, of learning new things, of self-improvement. And so on behalf of the Edinburgh Interfaith Association, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for this opportunity to explore not only your career, but your personal life, And thank you for helping all of us, Jane, keep the faith.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you. I think you've helped me as well. Thank you.